Hello everyone, thanks for coming along. And Andrew really likes this talk. I really like talking about this topic as well. Ideally, networking works a lot better when there's a lot more people in the room, but we'll get along as best we can. I know I've met a few of you before, some of you are quite familiar. For those of you who don't know me, obviously I'm leaving, so my introduction is brief. So I work in the careers department at Birkbeck as an employability consultant, and I'm off, but we are getting someone to replace me. So don't worry, the careers department isn't going to disappear. There'll still be talks. There's lots on offer next term. There's a careers fair coming up at the end of the academic year. So keep an eye on what we're doing around the college. I run talks every term, and again, my successor will be doing that next term on topics like CVs, interviews, bits and pieces. I tend to run quite an informal workshop, and as I said to Barnaby a few moments ago, this workshop works best when you kind of interact. So I'll ask you a lot of questions. You're welcome to ask questions of me yourself. Don't worry about putting your hand up. If you're concerned, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, then just interject. All good? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to run through today a number of different things. I'm going to talk about the importance of networking, which is the title of the talk. Touch on some ideas around networking, what it is, why it's important, where you're doing it, when you're doing it, and how to do it well. I'm going to talk about handshaking, which is it's kind of a very British thing, quite a European thing, but it's important, and it's important to get right, so I'm going to touch on that. I'm also going to talk about how to do that badly and show you a short video of someone who does it particularly badly. There's a little bit of time for discussion. I've got a few things I'd like us to talk about within the workshop. And networking bingo will follow. I'll explain networking bingo. I know Andrea has sorted something out for the Christmas party in BO4, so that will follow, and you'll be able to put some of this into practice. All sound good? Fantastic. Okay, so first of all, I told you I'll ask you some questions. What is networking? Does anyone want to give me their impression of it? Give me a definition? Don't be shy.
People that you know outside of your familiar and friend circle.
Yeah, so getting to know people outside your normal circle. Okay. What else is networking?
Making connections.
Building connections. Yeah, building. I like that word. We'll come back to that word a little bit later. What else is networking? What do you do when you meet these people? When you build a connection, what are you doing with that person? Communicating, keeping in touch. You're exploring. Networking is often about exploring ideas with people, about looking at ways you can benefit each other, that you can help each other, you can share influence, share ideas, share resources. So, I mean, Andrea and I are quite a good example of this. So when I came to Birkbeck, I didn't know Andrea didn't know me. I reached out to some of the departments and we explored ways in which we could work together. So that's a real example of networking. And networking sometimes bears fruit, like gin, and workshops for Andrea and you guys. So that's actively networking within the university. Why is this important? Why do we talk about networking? Why do we emphasise its importance? And why does Andrea think it's useful for me to talk to you about this today?
I think it widens your spheres of influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
It connects you with resources.
Yeah.
And you explore possibilities you might not know about. Going into the unknown.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if we're talking about this in the context of careers, exploring possibilities is really, really critical because I get asked all the time. I mean, the most common question I get asked is, I'm doing this degree, what can I go and do with it? And what's the answer to that question? What do you think I say when students ask me that? I usually say, what do you want to do? At which point they say, well, I don't know, you tell me. But I don't know what they could potentially do. I do have a really good idea, but there are hundreds and thousands and millions of different jobs available in the labour force. There are lots of different permutations of jobs. I mean, myself and one of my best mates do the same job in job title, but the actual details of that job are very, very different. So networking in terms of careers development is really useful for what we call career invention. So finding out what is available, what the possibilities are, what jobs mean, what my role is, what Andrea's role is. So networking is really, really critical for that. Is it important for anything else?
I think it's also good for self-development. Understanding people from different backgrounds and different contexts and cultures.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
Broadens your mind as well.
yeah, it helps you stay open-minded, and sharing ideas with people who don't necessarily have the same background or viewpoint as you is very, very useful. It helps you stay fresh and challenged and not, end up in a bubble. I know it's talked about a lot in the media, but people who don't network beyond their comfort zone tend to have very kind of linear views. They don't tend to take on other viewpoints. So yeah, it's critical for that. What else is it useful for? At a really basic level, it's really good for making friends and getting to know people. I'm relocating to Manchester in the new year. I'm going to need to do a lot of networking. I know a few people up there, but not loads. So I'm going to need to reach out and kind of improve my friendship circle, so I'm not, frankly, just a little bit lonely. So it's useful in a work context. It's useful in a careers context. It's useful in a social context as well. So networking is a really, really critical part of your life. Which of you enjoys networking? Which of you enjoys networking, so actively doing this? Sometimes there's a lot of you doing this, like pulling a bit of a face. Why would you not enjoy it? So you're pulling a face. What? Oh, you do? Oh, that was a happy face. Sorry, you're doing this. I wasn't sure. Why do you not? So you said sometimes. Why do you not enjoy networking? What puts you off?
Sometimes it depends on the atmosphere. So if you find a welcoming atmosphere, it will be easy. But if you find door close,
what's a welcoming atmosphere? How would you describe a welcome atmosphere?
We can engage long conversations or people they can talk to even they don't know you.
And what's an unwelcoming atmosphere? What would put you off networking?
People not talking.
People not talking. Do you think you can influence that though, can't you? Sometimes. I'm going to talk about that in a moment or two. Talk about some ideas around how to get networking going. And lastly, when and where are we networking? When does this happen? Work?
Schools, events.
Yeah?
Industry, buses.
Now?
Talks.
Yeah? You're networking now. I mean, some of you haven't met me before, so hi. We'd have a chat afterwards. I'm going to come to BO4. It's actively networking. You're constantly doing it. And who has a smartphone? You on Twitter? Facebook? Instagram? What's that? Social networking. See, you've all got your phones in front of you because most of us do these days. It's potty, but right in front of you is a networking tool. So I'd imagine that most of you will probably have logged into at least one of those things at some point today. That's networking. Whether you've spoken actively on those platforms, whether you engage with anyone, whether you liked anything, that is actually networking. So you're doing it pretty much constantly. So you need to be aware of how it's useful and what to do to make it more effective for you. So getting the right mindset for networking is really important. It's easy to slip into slightly bad habits when doing this, or like I say, to kind of fall down the same path time and time again and not really be, like you said, expanding up, building this sphere of network. So networking offers you the opportunity to make new connections, so to explore something we weren't already able to do. So whether that's adding someone to your professional circle, so for me it might be, in my new role, it would be colleagues around the university, around the faculty that I don't really know, from different departments who have different functions, who aren't within my immediate circle. It's a very good opportunity to ask for information. So you're here to find out more about networking. You're networking to find out about networking. You could go to a number of different talks around the university in the beginning of term 2 to explore new information around projects that are happening, around interesting schemes you can get involved in. Maybe something with the union would add to your employability profile. You can go and find out about what they're up to. You can network with people individually to find out more information as well. I'm going to touch on some ideas around how to actively question for that sort of networking as well. The way to seek expert advice. So coming back to the idea of career invention, talking to people who had successful careers in industries you want to go into is seeking expert advice through networking, and it's something I would encourage you to actively do. If you're on LinkedIn, if you go to alumni events here, if you go to careers fairs, anything where people have had the kind of role or had the kind of career you want to have, seek their advice, reach out to them, connect with them, add them to your network and explore what they've done, not necessarily asking for a job, but having more of an idea about how you can pursue a career in that field. And lastly, I mean, I said this on the last slide, but networking is just about meeting new people. And one of the things I think is extraordinary about Birkbeck, and one of the things I will miss the most, is the fact that you are surrounded by a very broad demographic of people. I mean, look around you. So the makeup of students here is very different to any other university in the UK, because people come and study at a different time of day, often meaning they've got the opportunity to study at a different point in their lives. We also do a lot of outreach work, so we have people coming from all different sections of the community who wouldn't necessarily always come to higher education. It's a really interesting spread of students at Birkbeck, so it's a really good chance to explore things beyond your normal realm of experience, to find out, you know, what people have done and didn't like, did and liked, did and failed at, did and were successful at. So take the opportunity to meet new people within the settings that you're provided with immediately. In your classes and your modules, as you meet new people, talk to them, get engaged with them, take them for a coffee. It might not immediately go anywhere. It might just be useful to have someone to bounce essay ideas off, but you never know where people have been or where people have had careers, or they know people further afield. Focus on manners and good courtesy when networking. The British are obsessed with manners. Someone has probably apologised to you for something they didn't necessarily do wrong at least twice already this morning, whether you bumped into them and they said sorry, whether they said sorry as they were giving you some change. We love to apologise, we love to be polite. So I would put a huge emphasis on that when you're networking with people. So be very courteous, be very formal with people, especially where you're communicating on digital media. So if you're communicating with someone on LinkedIn, via an email, on Twitter, we tend to be drawn down quite informal ways of communicating, but I would still try and be very courteous, very polite. Remember your pleases and thank yous. Sounds really basic, but those things get noticed by their absence sooner than they get noticed by their presence, so be very, very careful with what you do. I would avoid, when networking, just outright asking for a job. You're laughing, but people do it, and often that is sort of the end goal. So if you were to go to one of the panel evenings that we organise with alumni, maybe you want to go and work in an investment bank. We have had some investment bank sort of employees come and talk at those evenings. You can't go up to that person at the end of that and say, oh, that was really interesting, could you give me a job? You can't even ask that 3 questions in, so are there any jobs available? Because that's not okay. And if you go in with that mindset, regardless of how you try and wrap that up, it'll be fairly obvious to the person you're working with. It's a little bit rude, it's a little bit off-putting, it's a little bit too forward. So explore, build, network, get information, ask some interesting questions, ask some insightful questions, and see where the conversation takes you. It might get to the point where they think they could introduce you to someone who could give you a job. I would avoid having that agenda flat out to start with. It's not about selling yourself either. So I run careers fairs here quite frequently, and one of the things that really puts me off is where I see students who are just stood there giving like a pitch, like a sales pitch to an organisation. It's like they're selling a second-hand car. That's not actively networking. If you're going to a networking event, a careers fair, again, if you're meeting people, don't just stand there and talk about yourself. Ask questions, be inquisitive. If you ask questions, the likelihood is people will ask questions back, and that gives you an opportunity to have a really productive conversation. I would also avoid hassling people. There might be people that you really want to add to your network that you think would be really beneficial, who have a lot to offer you, that whether they're really influential, whether they're really inspirational, or you really want to emulate them. If they don't kind of reciprocate your advances, then don't chase after them, don't hassle them. You wouldn't do that on Tinder because someone would think you were a stalker, so you wouldn't do that in the networking world either. So if there's a point where people start engaging with you, then just know when to leave things. It might come full circle, that might happen at another stage, someone else might introduce you, they might just be really busy, so don't be that person who's pestered, because again, you don't want to be remembered for the wrong reasons when doing this sort of thing. 5 little myths about networking. Networking is talking to lots of people. Do you think that's true? Think that networking requires you to talk to tons and tons of people? Lots of head shakes, some people not committing either way?
Not necessary.
Not necessary? Why? I'm not saying you're right or wrong just yet, but why is it not necessary?
I'll say. Because sometimes you can have, let's say, large network, but you are not talking to everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Facebook, people who've got 300, 400, 500 friends on Facebook, are they networking with all those people? Are they actually friends? Same on LinkedIn. If people have got 500 plus contacts, I'm always a little bit, really? Is that an active network? You can be just as effective at networking if you only work with a quite selected group of people, if you're quite careful about who you build relationships with. I think it's difficult to build good, effective working relationships and to network really, really well. So don't feel that you have to go and shake every hand in a room if you know that there are 3 people you really want to talk to and you've already done a little bit of homework about what you could talk about. So don't be pressured into talking to loads of people. Is networking about having lots of important contacts?
The more important they are, the better your network will be, I think.
Yeah? But does everyone have to be important?
Not everyone, but a lot of people, because otherwise your network won't be very rich for you, I think.
Maybe not immediately. So you never know how important people are going to be.
Yeah, I think it's a definition of importance, isn't it?
Yeah. Are they important to you?
Someone that may be obscure today and quite a low-profile person that you think is not very important, you never know when, in a year or 2 years' time, that person may have the resources that you might particularly need. I mean, this I think.
I totally agree. You never know where people are going to go, and I think that's one of the more interesting things about looking after and cultivating a network. So, again, to use me as an example, 2 of the people who applied to do my job are old colleagues of mine, who I worked with about 6 years ago, and they both got in touch because they knew I had been doing the job and said, "Do you think it'd be worth me applying?" So they had a chat with me about it, and they obviously now are a little bit ahead in the interview process. It's nothing wrong. Anyone could get in touch with me. I'm always happy to have a chat. But they reached out and part of their network. So let's put them a little bit ahead of the game. I'm not that important, I would argue. I'm not particularly influential. I might be here at the moment, but generally speaking, I'm not that important. I'm not, Theresa May or Donald Trump. Thank God. So you never know where people are going to be important. And you might be important to them. Sometimes it's just good to put something back. Your altruism, again, often gets noticed, and people who aren't altruistic are noticed for the wrong reasons. So networking is about having something reciprocal. Networking is about getting ahead by playing politics. So by only being friends with the right people, about ditching people when they're not useful to you. Is that what networking is? You can probably tell by the tone of my voice. No. It's absolutely not. You shouldn't do that. I mean, workplace politics are often a nightmare, but I would try and not be seen to play politics with people, to befriend the influential people just because they're influential. It should be about genuinely building relationships. Is networking about never eating lunch alone? So always having a lunch with someone, always being busy. How often do you think I have lunch with people?
I think it can be tiring if you're always striving to have lunch with people.
Yeah, it's really draining, and sometimes you do need a little bit of time. Yeah, to let your brain process the conversations you've had. You don't always have to have a full diary of meetings with people. You still need time to, to do your own work, to get on with your own life. It doesn't all have to be like go, 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 go. Now, I know a couple of people like that, and I don't know how they do it. I don't understand how they're not always tired. I need time to myself, so don't worry about being pressured to always be with people. And networking is only for super connectors. So people who are those go-getters. So that's who networking is for. No, absolutely not. Networking is for everyone, and it's something you can actively do on a sliding scale. You can be a super connector, so one of those people, so recruiters are really good examples of super connectors who often have lots and lots of contacts in their contact list. They're really good at keeping in touch with people, keeping relationships going, of all that kind of stuff. That's one end of the scale. The other end of the scale might be someone who's Birkbeck doing a master's, and you're slowly starting to build out a network of people in an industry you're interested in going into, but you don't have loads of time to invest. So you go to something every few weeks and try and talk to people as much as you can. That's absolutely fine. They're two ends of a scale, but it's not just for people at that top end. Okay. I talked a little bit about this already. So networking is absolutely valuable for your career development. It's something I'd really encourage you to do. I wouldn't discourage you from coming to talk to careers, because we can often suggest things that maybe you hadn't thought of before. But in terms of exploring your career options, your career goals, and some of the challenges you might face along the way, some of the realities of working in a particular field, working in a particular sector, nothing really beats talking to people who are actually doing it. And we try and provide you with as many opportunities to do that at Birkbeck as possible. So careers fairs, we often have guest speakers in at workshops and events. We have the Upskill Tech programme, so looking at tech employers. We have Enterprise, looking at entrepreneurship. We have careers fairs. So there's a huge amount going on. There are really good chances to go and meet people and talk to people. And one of the benefits of being in London is that there are often lots of networking events for particular industries as well. You're spoilt for choice in London. If you were talking about this in Barnsley, then it might be a little bit more of a challenge. But have a look on things like Eventbrite, on meetups.com. There are lots of opportunities to go out there, network, meet people, and get a little bit of insight for your personal development.
What was the second thing you said?
It's called meetups.com.
How do you spell that?
meetups.com. Google that, because it might be .co.uk. Suddenly doubted myself. But it's a website that helps people arrange kind of networking events, so like breakfast meetings, like cheese and wine evenings, a little bit like the you're going to have in BO4, like just an opportunity to mingle with people. So do try and develop your own network within what you're doing at any one time, as well as broadening elsewhere. I think networking within an organisation, within an institution, is just as critical as building it elsewhere. I wouldn't be able to do my job very well without people like Andrea, and likewise Andrea wouldn't be very good at her job if she didn't know people within the college like me and Barnaby who are essentially helping today. So it's really useful to do. Try and make the best of the situations you find yourself in. So if you are sent on a training day by work with some people from another organisation, don't just talk to the people you know, reach out and talk to other people as well. So make the best of unusual situations that you find yourself thrown into. And one of the reasons this is so important is because personal recommendations do go a long way in some sectors. I'm not going to point fingers and name names, but some industries more than others rely on you having a reputation. So having someone say, actually, maybe you should meet this person. So things will happen less through an application form. They'll happen more through having a glass of wine, having a coffee with someone, having a bit of a nudge, you should look at this person. Has anyone heard of something called the hidden job market? Anyone want to guess what that means? The hidden job market.
Job done advertised.
Yeah. So the hidden job market is the jobs that...
Word of mouth market.
Yeah, word of mouth, networking, jobs that are just created because we wanted to give someone a role. Anyone want to try and guess what percentage of jobs are estimated to happen on the hidden job market? 30? 50? 65. So about 65. Very, very difficult figure to estimate, but most things that I've read, most studies that I've seen, tend to guess around 60 to 65% of jobs go around on the hidden job market.
That's a lot.
It's a huge amount. It's a really huge amount. And that it starts to emphasise why this is so critical. It's not all jobs, and lots of things, do get advertised, but 65 certainly covers a lot of it, and a lot of roles where really they've advertised it only for due diligence. They know who they're going to recruit. So networking is really, really critical. It can just give you an edge. These are some sort of suggestions of effective ways to network and reasons it's important. So it's important for relationships, personal relationships as well as professional ones. Important for your career, for exploring opportunities, so understanding the hidden job market, what jobs are available, what jobs are out there. Even sometimes it's quite handy to know when a job's going to be coming up. So does anyone want to go into the academic world? Anyone want to work in academia? No, okay. Very, very competitive, so it's probably a good choice. In the academic world, it's really useful to know that roles are being advertised ahead of time. So if you know academics from an institution and there's going to be a research post, so you can reach out to those academics, build a relationship, and start to shape your application long ahead of time. So knowing where opportunities are coming up. That's not unique to academia, it's just a really good example. It's good for building connections, building contacts, looking at different user groups. So if you're building a product, if you're maybe designing an app, or you're building a business, networking through your user group is really useful. I've got some people I'm helping build kind of career development apps at the moment who reached out to me. It's good for communities, so you might want to network where you live as well. I don't know if anyone lives in an apartment block, but I've got some friends in Stratford who know everyone in their building at the moment. That's like their own little Facebook network community. It's helpful to know when someone's away or the bins need taking out, or you know, someone's being crazy on the 9th floor and the police need to be called. It's just handy, it's really handy. It's useful for success. So in some sectors, it is essential to success. It can just help give you an edge. It can help give you a bit of inspiration to know a little bit more in the interview than you did, than any of the other candidates did. It's really, really handy. And I don't know why this circle's on this slide, but it is often useful to have business cards when you're doing this kind of thing as well. Does anyone have their own business card? You all have a CV? Yeah. What's right at the top of your CV? The contact details. Put those on a business card. If you're going to go to events, careers fairs, if you're going to go to meetups, if you're going to get introduced to people, you can't hand someone a CV, and you don't want to do that thing where you're flapping about putting a number in your phone because you'll forget. Get yourself a business card. You can get them on Vistaprint or Moo. There's loads of them that they do them online. They're about 10 quid for 50. It's a really sound investment because your CV you'll update and you'll change all the time and you'll adapt it, or someone will point out a spelling mistake on it. If you do a business card, it's your business card. It's your number, your email, your LinkedIn URL. Done. Won't regret it, trust me. Do's and don'ts in networking. So when you are networking, let's assume that you've gone to a careers event. These are things to absolutely do and the things to absolutely not do. So first of all, ask open questions. What's an open question? Actually, do this the other way around. What's a closed question?
Personal.
Oh no, a personal question could be very open. What did you do at the weekend? That's an open question. It's quite personal. What's a closed question?
Did you go for a close question?
Yeah.
Did you go for this, or did you do something?
Yeah, so it's a yes or no or a binary answer. It's a one-word answer. So, do I like gin? Yes. That's a closed question. So ask open questions so people can give you a little bit more. Be approachable and friendly. So you talked about unwelcoming networking situations. I know exactly what you mean, but you can help to influence that. So by being more open and friendly yourself. So I go to things quite frequently, and there are people who are just obviously closed to communication. So they might be looking at their phone, so like this, they're looking at a room, or they'll be sort of hiding near the croissants or the wine and just not really engaging with anyone. So if you do go to an event, look friendly, smile, you know, try and be confident, open with your body language. Don't stare at your phone. Don't be constantly just checking and fiddling and not engaging with people. Try and make eye contact so people can talk to you. Make sure you actively listen to what people are saying. It's very easy, especially when you're talking to someone who you do think is influential, who you are rather in awe of. It's very difficult to get a little bit lost in what they're saying, or be panicking and thinking, well, what am I going to say next? What's my next question? Try not to do that. Try and listen to what they're saying and respond to it in turn. Really what I'm saying is have a conversation and don't just wait for your turn to speak or turn to say something. They might say something that takes you on a different route to where you expected a conversation to go. So don't be afraid to kind of run with it and don't try and have an agenda. That's why making sure you're not trying to ask for a job is useful as well. Plan low-risk opening remarks. So what would a low-risk opening remark be? How would I start a conversation in a safe way? What's the most British question ever? The weather. Nice weather today, isn't it? That is a low-risk opening remark, and
everyone's going to answer. Everyone's going to say, yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Ooh, isn't it a nice blue sky? It's not as wet and cold as it was the other day. That's perfect, absolutely perfect. I want to talk about the venue. So, interesting old building, isn't it? Look at these wood panels on the walls. Low risk opening remarks. There's loads of different ones you could do. I mean, talk about people's journey in, if you've seen a talk, if you've seen a panel with a keynote speech, what did you think of the lead speaker? Just to rehearse those remarks. You might not end up talking for 20 minutes about the weather. I'd really hope you didn't. But it's just a way of getting an introduction to people, to being open and friendly, starting a conversation. Smile, give a firm handshake. I said smile quite a lot. It's really important. Professional doesn't mean grumpy, which a lot of people on LinkedIn don't seem to understand. And give a firm handshake. I'll talk about handshakes in a moment or two because it's really critical. If you possibly can, research organisations and people you know who are going to attend. So if it's something like a careers fair, that's really easy, that's really straightforward. A networking event might post a list of the attendees ahead of time. If it's a panel talk, almost certainly. Might be that you can't, but if there are a few people on that list you know you want to make a beeline for, do a little bit of homework. You know, what are they up to at the moment? What are their kind of key achievements? Where might you want that conversation to lead? And I mentioned this already, but do try and have business cards ready. Don't disclose or expect intimate information. What do I mean by that? What would intimate information be? What did you do at the weekend? That's quite a direct and intimate question. You look really, really terrified then as well because you weren't expecting it. So don't expect that kind of information. You shouldn't be talking about, you know, your kids or your relationship or, you know, what you're going to do at the weekend, where you're going on holiday next, unless you already know someone. That's not really appropriate within this kind of networking. Try not to be deep or controversial. So what topics should we avoid? Politics. Religion. Money. Money's a tricky one because sometimes in certain industries that's going to come into factor, but you shouldn't really be talking about maybe what you earn or, you know, what salary expectations might be within a particular industry. It's quite a British thing, but people don't tend to react very well to that. But absolutely avoid religion and politics. Politics more than anything at the moment. And don't go around giving out your CV to people. I've seen people do it. The only place that might be okay is at a careers fair. So if you actually are there to talk about recruitment processes, about jobs, someone might want to see your CV or you might want to talk through it. But I wouldn't be going around handing it out to people, trying to get them to take it off you, because it's bonkers. And it's going to end up in a bin. Because if everyone who they met on that day gave them a CV, they're not going to read through them all. Send a business card, add someone on LinkedIn, and take that conversation somewhere else another time. Okay, tips and ideas. So practice your self-introduction. If you're the kind of person who gets a little bit nervous about introducing themselves, about opening those conversations, just practice. So, you know, hi, my name's Alex. How are you doing? Nice to meet you. What do you think about the venue? Done. That's really easy. Because otherwise you'll panic, you'll clam up, you'll not feel confident about doing it. So do practice that, either with someone or practice in a mirror or record yourself on a phone if you're really brave. Be ready to seize the moment. So if you do see an opening with someone, go and introduce yourself. If you see two people having a conversation, that's potentially an opportunity for you to lurk nearby, lurk's a bad word, to hover nearby and then interject into that conversation. So you can get involved in something that's already happening. It's a lot easier. You don't know who you're going to be rubbing shoulders with sometimes, so seize those opportunities to sort of reach out. Again, if someone new is in your class, if it's a new academic you haven't met before, make sure you introduce yourself personally. You just don't know who you're going to spend time with sometimes. So take the opportunity, ask those open questions, understand, explore, see what people are about. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. So important doesn't necessarily mean important now. So someone you're working with in class might go on a very different route to you to a similar point. So you could be very useful to each other in the future. There could be some kind of reciprocal relationship or some resource you can share that you might end up working for companies that already collaborate, in which case you can help build the bridge. It's really important to look after a network and cultivate it, to not, you know, add someone to LinkedIn and then not talk to them for 5 years, but to check in with them occasionally, you know, drop someone a little email. give someone a call. But I mean, when was the last time actually anyone picked up the phone? So do keep in touch with people. You don't know where people are going to go. And I've mentioned this a few times, but be online. Which of you are on LinkedIn? Quick show of hands. 2 out of 5, okay. Be on LinkedIn. I've talked about it a lot. It's an incredibly useful tool. And the sooner you add yourself to it, the better. I don't tend to endorse a lot of social media. I'm a little bit cynical about things like Facebook and Twitter, although I do think they have their uses. LinkedIn, I don't really see many downsides to in the professional sphere. And in some industries, it's really kind of expected that you're on there. It's a very good way of keeping in touch with people. It's a very good research tool when you're looking at jobs, when you're looking at industries and companies. So have a look at LinkedIn. We do a workshop on it. We'll be running next term if you want to come along to that. If you want to have an in-depth chat about LinkedIn with someone, then get in touch with the careers service. We can meet with you and talk you through it. We need to help you build a profile. So reach out to us if you're not sure. And if you guys need any support as well, we're always happy to. Have you logged into the careers portal yet? You have. Did you know you had one? For those of you who didn't. Have you logged into the careers portal just yet? Oh, okay. Well, let me tell you about the careers portal. When you go into your My Birkbeck profile, scroll down to the bottom, there's a little tab which will say careers portal. If you click that, it will take you through to an enormous resource. So there's lots to explore on there. There are some videos and guides about using social media in general, so things like Twitter, pitfalls of social media, things to avoid. There are a couple of short videos and tutorials around LinkedIn as well, so if you want to get ahead of the game and then come and see someone in the new year, then you can do. But either way, I would certainly explore the portal. It's really, really good. We're just about to put up some new kind of programs that we put together on there as well, so some guides to bits and pieces we think are important. So check that out. Does everyone know this song? Got to shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Showing my age. It's a good song. Hey Ya, Outcast. There we go. But not like this. I'm going to show you a video of how not to shake hands, and then we're going to discuss how to shake hands. Give me 2 seconds. Just while this is loading. What is a bad handshake? What words would you associate with a bad handshake?
Limp.
Limp? I like that we got a mime with that as well. What else makes a bad handshake?
A grip, a lock grip.
Yeah? Like the crusher, where people seem to want to show you how strong they are.
Using both hands.
Oh, so that one where they clasp over the top of your hand, that's a bit of a power move, yeah? Car salesman like that one. What else makes a bad handshake? Something? What, a fist pump?
Yes.
That one where people try and do it like that?
Yes.
If they're your mates, I think that's okay. Or just have a look at this one. So. Are you all right? It is. It's also slightly terrifying, but there we go. Oh, has my whole presentation has now disappeared. That is pretty much not how to shake hands. What should a handshake be? Should. So what's the right way to shake hands? Firm, but not crushing. Where have we gone? Oh, hang on. Oh, there we go. So they're bad handshakes to avoid. The politicians, so the double handshake you mentioned over there. The close shaker, which Donald does quite frequently, that sort of pull into it to people. Confusing handshakes, which you also mentioned, and the misfire. So please, you need to get it right. If you do this sort of, that's not a great look. So you're right, it should be firm. How long should it be for? Short, 2-3 seconds. Yeah, it's shaking hands, not holding hands. So you need to get that bang on. You should try and make eye contact as well whilst you're doing it. So look someone in the eye, not like at their shoes or like over in the distance. And you should try and make sure your hands aren't wet. And that's, if you're nervous, that's often a bit of a difficult one. If you know you're going to shake someone's hands, then just rub it on your jumper or the back of your trousers to make sure you're not going to give someone a wet fish. If in doubt, practice with someone. I'm always happy to shake people's hands. If I haven't got a glass of wine or gin in it, then yeah, that's the best way to do things. But I would practice that because it's something that people make quite a lot of judgments about, people are weirdly obsessive about. Does anyone know why we do it? Do you know why we shake hands, where it originates from? Yeah, it's to show you're not carrying a weapon. That's why we shake with our right hands. So show someone you're not going to stab them. So it's really antiquated because obviously not many people carry swords anymore, unless you're on horse guards. So yeah, that's why we do it. Brill. And that brings me to the end of what I have to say. But does anyone have any questions about networking or actually about the careers service? If you've got anything you want to ask about what we do or how you can engage with us, then I'm more than happy to talk about it. When do we close for Christmas? That is a good question. The drop-in service closes on the 20th. 20th, yeah. So my last day in the office is the 21st. That's when Birkbeck officially shuts. And that's closed until, I think, the 3rd of January, because there's some electrical work in Mallet Street. But we are open from the 20th. Do you know where the careers service is? Do you know where we're based? Yeah, we're in the SU building. So do you know where the Student Central is? Where, Waterstones is towards UCL. Opposite there is the Student Central building. We're just inside there. So if you go in just to the right, you'll see our banners. We're open, from 2 till 6 for drop-in. Yeah, so we're in there. It's with the energy-based gym and things along those lines. So there's lots of stuff in the building, but you can come and talk to us weekdays from 2. So do drop in if you want to come to ask us anything.
What is the right moment for a handshake?
Just as you're being introduced, or as you, right at the start. You might handshake after something as well, especially if you've agreed something or you've had a really productive conversation. So as you're welcoming someone, or as you're being introduced in the first few moments, and then as you're departing, I often shake hands with people as well. Possibly, yeah. I might just really love handshaking. Yeah, potentially twice. Certainly if you're thanking people, if you had a really useful meeting, then I would shake people's hand, just to say thanks.
I have been told that, for example, if you are in work, especially here, it's like you have to shake hands when you in, and once you leave the thing, you have to shake hands.
What, every day?
Yes.
No. No, I've not shaken my boss's hand for quite some time.
So it's true, basically, you don't shake hands.
Not every day, no. There is such a term as a golden handshake, which might be what you're referring to. So when you start a job, a golden handshake might be an incentive to start working there. I used to do it for teachers a little while ago because there was a shortage of teachers across all of education, essentially. So the government offered what was called a golden handshake, which was like an incentive. I think it was a few £1,000s to become a teacher. So that might be what you've heard of. So that does sometimes happen. But it's not an actual handshake, it's money. So it's a handshake often gets applied to terms like that because it's a nice way of saying hello, if that makes sense. Sort of. Anything else?
Well, to me, LinkedIn, for example, I'm quite concerned that my previous experience can harm my LinkedIn profile rather than help me.
Is that because are you making a career shift? Are you changing jobs?
Yes.
Okay.
Because my past jobs have been like more at a low level as a student.
I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, come and talk to us about it. Ultimately, all your skills and past experiences are valuable, are useful. And what you see as being low level actually might demonstrate behaviours and attitudes that some employers would find very attractive. So I often find people have this attitude about roles within retail or hospitality, that they're low level. They might not need massive amounts of qualifications to do them, and they're often jobs that people do earlier in their career, but they're quite difficult. You know, they're often really challenging customer service roles. You might have to deal with very difficult people. You might have to be very good at multitasking. So we can talk about that. I mean, we get a lot of career changes at Birkbeck, so we're really used to helping out with those situations. So I'd suggest come to a drop-in with your CV, talk to Anna or Tara or me, we can take it from there. But I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah. Anyone else?
I have a question about exiting. I mean, you said that there are times you can handshake when you're going to leave an event, for example, but it depends on the situation. Sometimes you just sort of awkwardly wave.
You do a Dutch exit, you just disappear.
Yeah. What would you say on that?
It depends on the event. So if it was, let's say it's a careers fair or a networking event, so there's 40, 50 people there, I'd just go, finish the conversation you're having, grab your coat, go. If it's a dinner and there's maybe 6, 8 people there, then you need to say goodbye. Say, thanks very much, guys, I'm off, I've got another appointment I need to go to later in the afternoon. You might shake hands with people close to you. I make a judgment call. The handshake as you leave is not you don't desperately need to do that. It's much more an introduction thing. But sometimes, you might shake the hand of the host. You might say, thank you very much for having me. Shake hands, and then off you go. But there are certain situations where just the volume of people mean it's not really practical to say goodbye to everyone. Sometimes it's just better to slink out. If it's an event where someone's hosted it, so let's say the panel evenings here are often hosted by me, a colleague, or a member of the alumni team. As the panelists go, they will always really come and say, thanks for having me, hope it's been useful, and then they'll go. But other students, I would just expect you can disappear. The formality of the event dictates whether you should sort of say goodbye. I wouldn't worry about it too much though. Just be polite. Anyone else?
What is a polite way to finish a conversation if you want to move to somebody else?
That's a very good question. You need to look for the exit opportunities within a conversation. But I would say that's been really, really fantastic. I just want to go and make sure I connect with, A, B, and C. If it's an event where that is the core of what's going on, no one's going to think that's rude. I personally wouldn't take that to heart at all. If you said it's been really useful chatting, could I get a card so we can connect later on? I just want to talk to a couple of people before they leave. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
But sometimes there are situations, and then in a way you start with the person, you cannot really.
Well, sometimes people don't.
It looks a little bit rude.
It potentially does, and some people don't pick up very well on sort of non-verbal cues. So next time you're having a conversation with someone, I try and focus not necessarily on what they're saying verbally, what they're saying with the rest of themselves physically. So you can often tell when someone wants to end a conversation by the way they're stood or what they're doing with their arms, the way their feet are pointing, where their eyes are looking. So if you're engaging in a conversation with someone and they're looking at either side of you and they're very rarely making eye contact, they probably want to talk to someone else, so they don't want to be in that conversation anymore. So next time you're talking to anyone, think about it for the rest of the afternoon. Try and observe those cues. Some people, however, just don't pick up on them very well. So some people consciously or subconsciously don't necessarily notice that you want to end a conversation, which is where you have to probably say, look, I don't want to be rude and interrupt, but I really want to, I need to go, I need to connect with that person. Failing that, try and go to something with someone who can rescue you. I'm not joking, have a signal, lift the glasses or raise the eyebrow, whatever, for whoever else you're with to sort of come and say, I'm really sorry, can I just grab you for a moment? And then that's not rude, that's okay. It's sometimes, I appreciate sometimes a tricky one to judge, but you can often read the other person well enough to know when it's okay. And if in doubt, just interrupt. As long as the interruption itself is polite and you're not just going, shh, I'm going over there. And you said, thank you very much. It's been really interesting. I'd love to talk about this more later on. Hand a card, stay in touch, go away. Anything else? No? Lovely. Well, thank you very much for coming. I hope that's been useful. I enjoy that talk, and networking is something that I think, if you have the right approach to it, if you're quite open-minded about it, it itself is very good fun. I do what I do because I like people. I'm interested in what people have done and are going to do and could do. And I think the more open-minded you are, the more you can explore, and you might find opportunities that you just didn't know existed if you do this well. So there we go. So embrace it. Have a good Christmas, and I'm going to walk you all over to BO4 for some mulled wine. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.